This episode is sponsored by Everyday Kids Travel, a kids and parents travel review site. Hi, welcome to another edition of Health, Wealth, and Happiness. I'm Christina. I am the founder and creator of Zimov Entertainment, and we're bringing our things together for you. So enjoy finding your special journey and your joy in life. And this episode of Health, Wealth, and Happiness. Well, welcome to Health, Wealth, and Happiness Interviews to Inspire. I'd like to welcome our first guest, Vianey Becerra. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Glad to be here.
So excited to have you join us. You are an amazing woman that I've known for over a decade, and I am so pleased that you could join us today. Your descriptive, I love your descriptive job title because I get it. It's the stay-at-home working mom, and that's a big title.
It is.
And so our descriptive word for health is balance. So what would you say, and how can you describe to me a little bit about your health word of balance?
Yeah. So I think, like you said, the term stay at home working mom is so loaded and so multifaceted that it's a twofold job. So you have the stay at home part, and which is, basically just staying home with my almost 3 year old toddler. I have a little bitty one on the way. So there's that aspect to it. But I also work for a public library in Baltimore as part of the public library system. And I work full time. It's been a blessing in disguise for sure, because that means I can stay home and watch my kids grow up and not miss anything. But it's also been a challenge trying to balance being a stay at home mom, but also having a full time job. So it's these past 3 years since my daughter was born have been just trying to manage how, and I think it's not only me, it's been, I mean, everyone, you hear women talk about it all the time, regardless of whether they're stay at home moms or whether they're working moms or both. It's always a balance to try to figure motherhood out, plus, have ambitions, career obligations of your own. So, I mean, my story is certainly not unique, and I think it's one that all moms face. And you have so many demands on both sides that it's just, what is the right balance? And I don't know if any woman has figured that out, or anyone has figured that out. So yeah, it's been a process, and I think it's just it keeps on getting more intricate, the more time, or how your kids grow. And yeah, it's about finding that balance, which I haven't found it, but you find that, I find that my balance, I find it in routines.
Yeah.
So we have a very strict routine at home. I have a strict routine with my work schedule, with my daughter. So it's challenging for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, and I know personally what from my own experience, what you're talking about when you are running things from home and you're going, okay, the little one needs me right now. Where am I? Do I have a meeting right now that I have to take care of? Do I have to take care of the crying child? Where am I? So yeah, so your stress levels can increase, and also in both ways. Like you said, you're going through motherhood and you're learning with the child as they're growing the things that they need and their changes, as well as going, okay, this is a fun little balance. We'll figure this out. So there's something that you did mention before too, was the emotional balance, that mental like stability, because I've got to work with this little person as well.
Exactly.
And then I've got to get back into my adult mind, and I've got to figure out, okay, I can't gaga goo goo over here. I have to get back to, I am the professional again. Yeah. So it really is. I know exactly what you're talking about. So is scheduling, that's a neat way. So I've again, I've known you for a long time, and I love that you are so like, it's 5 o'clock. Click, phones are done, conferences are done, and so it really does give you a lot of quality time after that with your daughter too.
No, it does. And I think, it's funny because prior to having kids, I was very rigid in my work schedule. But I think since having kids, there's no, you have to work with their needs. So
Yeah.
there is no, you try to set routines and schedules, but at the end of the day, they're not going to abide by them because they're kids and they're babies and so since then, I've learned to be more comfortable with not necessarily chaos, but with the unknowns and, to reprioritize as my daughter's needs see fit.
Yeah.
So, routines are great for us. But there have been so many times where I've been thrown for a loop because my daughter gets sick, or she has to go to the pediatrician, or I have to do something for her, or simply, nap and changing of schedules, potty training, which we're knee deep in right now. So all of that I think has taught me to reprioritize and be comfortable with having a little more room for flexibility, because it's impossible to keep a strict work schedule or work anything scheduled with a baby, toddler, child.
Yeah, I love that word flexible, because flexibility is the balance, is figuring out the balance of, life work together, especially when you are doing it from home. And as another mom who works from home, I absolutely admire in what you're going through and what you've learned. I mean, we really do dig deep, don't we?
Well, and moms are superheroes too,
Yeah.
because I think, and it goes into, you mentioned mental health, and I think that there are so many pressures that are already put on by society, but more so the minute you welcome a child into this world, then you have an added responsibility that you're always trying to maintain and always trying to make sure that you are doing the best job you have, and that looks different for everyone. So I think that as women, we already go through a lot, whether you're adopting a child, physically birthing a child, or have surrogate. You go through so much emotional pain, stress. It puts such an emotional and physical toll on you. Um, that doesn't stop when the baby is born. So that carries on. And so now you have to take care of a child while trying to still keep up with your house, maintain a career, fulfill your own personal ambitions. So
Right.
it's a lot on your mental health, I think. And I think a lot of moms, like I said, like I'm just one of, probably every single mom out there that struggles with this, that you're balancing all these things at the risk of your mental health. And I see a lot of moms on social media that are so burnt out. And so, you sometimes have to continue sacrificing yourself, and sacrificing your needs and your ambitions, that it's hard to find a way to not only balance it, but to maintain your sanity and to maintain a good mental health. Um, so, so yeah, that also, it comes, I think mental health comes into play a lot when the minute you become a mother and the minute you're responsible for another human being.
Yeah. Do you have a moment in your life that kind of defined when you're like, wow, this little human being is here and it's how to get it together? Do you think there was a moment where you were just like, okay, this is what I need to do for me so that in that balance, I can make sure that everybody is getting what they need?
Yeah, for me, I found tremendous fulfillment in actually going to work. There are days, while I do stay at home and I work remotely, there are days where I do about once or twice a month, maybe more. I do have to go into the office. And let me tell you, those days that I go into the office, I feel like a human again. I feel like I'm an active member of society. and not just wearing my mom hat. So it's almost like I'm kind of who I was before I had her.
Mhm.
Of course, that doesn't mean that you love your child any less, or it doesn't mean any of that. It just means that for a second in time, or a day, you're back in the normal human, living world. So I don't think it was a particular moment, but I think being able to go in and be an active member of society, and not just sit there with bananas, and with stains all over my shirts. It really helped my own personal my mental health and my personal well-being,
Mhm.
because I was focused on something else, and I could put my energy and creativity towards something else. So it was kind of a little breather for me. Come back home and you realize, for me, I can only speak for myself, that I have more energy, more mental battery, if you will, to be able to care for my daughter the way she needs me to care for her if I take care of myself first. And for me, it's going to work. It's expressing my creativity at work. It's going and seeing my coworkers. So that does that works really well for me.
Yeah. So that leads me up to our next question is, what advice would you give to someone looking to improve their relationship with their balance of life for someone in a similar situation to you? A toddler, one on the way, working.
A lot of moms struggle with that mom guilt. So I think my advice would be to acknowledge the mom guilt, because I don't think it's fair to say, I don't think it's fair to disregard it completely, because it's not easy to disregard, and mom guilt is something that always stays,
Mhm.
whether it's always there if you experience it. So I think my advice would be to feel it, and to be okay with it, and to be okay with with saying, hey, yeah, there's I am going to leave my child to go to work, in my case. But at the end of the day, it's because I know that it's going to make me a better mom for my daughter. It's going to make me be in a better space mentally. It's going to give me the breather that I need to then go back and take care of her in the way that she needs me. So um, there's a little bit of the mom guilt aspect in that, but I think we all need to acknowledge. And I think that we also have to talk about it a lot, because I talk with a lot of other moms who have been through the same thing. They've been through same experiences. They're going through different transitions and transformations in their journey of motherhood. Um, but we all have had some struggle, or we're all struggling on a daily basis, just trying to meet and merge our needs with our child's needs. So yeah, I would say feel the mom guilt, but make sure that you take that breather for yourself. And it's not easy. Like for me, I cannot find an hour until 10 p.m. Um, at the end of the day to myself. So I recognize it's not easy to just say, oh, let go of the mom guilt and do things for you, or it's not a logical solution, because we often don't have an hour to ourselves a day. But if you can find those moments of whatever you need to do to make yourself be a better parent,
Mhm.
I would say let go of the mom guilt, or be okay with it, feel it, and do it, because at the end of the day, it's going to benefit your child. Your child needs to see you happy and stable. Yeah,
I
I only have 3 years. I'm only 3 years in, so I don't know. I'm knee deep in the toddler years right now, so that's
but
about
hey,
as much of it. I need to take advice more than I need to give it out.
but those who are in the newborn into the toddler stage, this is absolutely sage advice. There is an episode of Bluey where the mom says, "I just need 20 minutes."
Mhm, mhm. I
And
think, oh my gosh, I love Bluey. I definitely watch Bluey more than my daughter. She's still a little young to grasp the storyline, so I love them. And I think it's more of a parenting show, honestly, than than it is a children's show, but it's so great to see that highlighted in children's entertainment because you know the parents are listening to that in the background. And for us, it makes us resonate. It resonates so well with us. Like all moms can relate to that and say, like, I get you. I get you, Chili.
Exactly. And I'm a big proponent of take care of yourself first, because
Yeah.
if you are good, then you can help other people be good too.
Exactly, and I don't think I've realized that when my daughter was born, I completely threw myself into motherhood, and I lost a big chunk of myself during that year, and it wasn't until she was about 2 that I regained my footing, and I think a lot of if not all moms do this. You push yourself to the side and you just give your all to your child
Mhm.
when that's not necessarily the healthiest thing for either one of you. So, definitely, I you need to take care of yourself for your kid.
Motherhood is a wonderful journey for you. I love
It
hearing this.
is.
And, like you said, there's so many stories out there, and there's so many of us who are going through the same. And I love the idea because talking to each other, boy, does that help a lot.
Does. It does. No, and talking to other moms too and just hearing everyone else's journey is really inspiring and it's really nice to hear other moms sharing their stories as well.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Tourstein. Health, wealth, and happiness. On health, getting your vitamin C, getting that sun from the islands when you're in Grand Cayman and you're meeting nice people who are taking you on the boat. Getting the right sunshine and doing the right things and eating the right food. Health, health, getting that exercise, getting that workout. That's what it means to me. Having a healthy lifestyle. Vitamin D, number one. If you had to count me down to one word, ranking, uh, vitamin D. And, something to wash it down with.
So let's move on to our wealth section. Now, for those of you who are brand new, wealth can mean a lot. Well, it is brand new. It's only the second episode. So, wealth in health, wealth, and happiness is about what we feel about is wealth or abundance in our own life. And that's really what I want to bring to light with this show is what are our own personal definitions of wealth. And I love yours. It's the arts and education. And, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Tell me a little bit more about your love of the arts.
Oh my God. I could talk for hours about this. So I was fortunate enough to have two really great parents who valued the importance of arts and culture. So from a pretty young age, my father is a classical music enthusiast. My mother is a linguist. So she translates as well as being a dance enthusiast. So from when I was young, I was automatically put in ballet lessons, which I loved, and so that got me started at an early age. That was my first introduction to the arts was ballet. And I ended up dancing ballet for many, many years after that. I taught it. So I always kind of stuck with ballet, but appreciated um, the music behind it and the performance aspect of it. So for me, it was through ballet. I gained that love for the arts through ballet, through dancing, and through music.
Mhm.
But I was also fortunate enough to move to an area that provided so many opportunities to immerse myself in that world, to be able to teach dance to little bitty babies. Then when I moved to Baltimore, Baltimore, I love Baltimore. I love Baltimore, but one of the reasons that I love it is because of its past. Baltimore is a city with such a rich musical, cultural, and artistic history that many people don't know about, but I fell in love with Baltimore because it was once a very big artistic hub. So like I said, I was very fortunate to move to, the DC metropolitan area that continued my exposure of the arts. And I ultimately ended up working in the arts, like I said, teaching dance. I worked at a local theater company in Baltimore. I now work for a public library. So to me, I was raised with a love of arts and culture. Books. My like as I mentioned, my father is a classical musical enthusiast, but he also instilled a love of reading in us since we were very little. And I think that's so important. Um, Literacy, especially in young children, is so important because it develops their minds, their creativity, their imagination, critical thinking skills, um, vocabulary. It does so many things. So I think that also played a role, and it's one of the reasons why I love what I do now, working at a public library, is because I get to go in and it's so funny. Sometimes I'll be working and I'll just be like, I can't believe this is my job because this is so much fun. And the library that I work at has so much to offer beyond books that is so valuable to me. And to me, that's my definition of wealth, not necessarily in the tangible, money sense, but being able to have a wealth of culture, exposure to the arts, and arts education is so important to me, and it's something that I value very highly, because of my parents, because my parents have taught me those are our family values, to value arts and culture. So yeah, no, it's not in the traditional sense of the word wealth, but I consider myself wealthy when I am exposed on a daily basis, or when I'm just exposed to arts and as many different ways of consuming arts and culture as possible. And my preference is in dance and in books, but there's so many different forms of art out there um, that I consider to be a part of wealth.
Yeah. It's knowledge. I mean, the arts really is a sense of knowledge. It's people's creativity, and where does that arts and creativity come from? Our own personal stories. The from dance, from books, all literature comes from some emotion and stories that we have lived, and why we can relate to them so well.
Yeah,
It's it's beautiful. It really is.
it's beautiful. Yeah.
When would you say that you really hit your wealth, like your Scrooge McDuck sitting in the basement with all the dance and the books that you can have? Have you felt that for a while now? When did you realize that that's something that you wanted in your life?
I did not study arts. I did not study any of that. I actually studied political science and I worked in it. It was where I thought my career was headed. I worked in it for a couple of years, about 8 years or so during and after college. But I had a moment of transition where I left the political world, and it was in my late 20s. So, as you know, like in your 20s, you're kind of in your own world, figuring out what you want to do with your life and figuring out who you are. And I think your 20s are a great way, or a great place to start exploring and finding who you are. So I think in my 20s, in my late 20s, I was in a space where I had left my previous job in politics. I had been, teaching dance for a while, and I knew that it was my passion. And I wanted to see. I took a moment where I said, okay, well, what can I do? What do I like? What do I have experience in, and what do I actually want to learn more about? So I think that was a moment where it was kind of a turning point for me. And is when I really started to focus on supporting the arts, working in the arts, being you know, being an active participant in the arts. So yeah, I would say that that was a big turning point in my life, and that's what led me to find my current job. Is rediscovering, not rediscovering, because I always knew that that the arts were something that I liked, but I guess honing in on that passion and figuring out ways to live that passion out in my career and and for my entertainment purposes. So yeah, the 20s were my late 20s were a big time of discovery for me.
As they are for all of us. It's
Yeah.
true. Absolutely true. Well, and it's interesting because this almost goes into your balance. Here's something you're passionate about, you absolutely love, and it's your work. You're able to stay in the arts. You were able to discover something and going, okay, I really want to learn about this, but that's not the direction I want to take. And you come out with a wealth of knowledge no matter what direction you take. I think all of us in any career that we are in, but to be able to have this for your daily work. So not only can you work from home, be a mom, you can do something every day that you enjoy. I mean, that sounds like wealth to me right there.
100%. And I think that's the key. And if we could go back to the question that you asked me about what advice I would give, I think that's also a really important piece of advice, is to find out what you like and find ways to incorporate that in your life, whatever that be. And it could just be 5 minutes to yourself, or 5 minutes to meditate, whatever that is, whatever it looks like for you. I think that's so important, to find what you like to do, that you get enjoyment and fulfillment, and that fills your cup.
Well, there you go. You just answered the next question before I got to ask it.
Sorry about that.
That's perfect. That's all right. So your happiness word is family. I
It is.
Yep, I get you. I'm totally a family person myself, and our families, all of them, are so dynamic, so unique. I love when we try to say, "Oh, normal." There's no such thing as normal because it's different. We're all so different. We have different cultural backgrounds, different upbringings, different places we grow up. Different values in life. So, tell me more about what brings you happiness in your family.
I'll start off by saying that I'm Mexican. My parents are both from Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, in Mexico. I grew up on the border in El Paso, Texas. So I was raised with a big family. I was raised with my grandparents, my cousins, a whole slew of cousins. It was always very family oriented. And where I come from, El Paso is a huge family oriented town, and it's very big on family. So that was my background. I was raised by family members, surrounded by family members. Um, and then I moved to the DC metro area, and my family stayed here. So I moved, and I didn't have anybody. Now my sister has moved up there, so I do have her. But that's it. So it's been really interesting to raise my kids without them, because, well, without having that huge family that I did. And I know that they're getting such a, well, my daughter is, at least, such a, she has a totally different upbringing than I did, which is crazy to me. Um, but what brings me happiness is my family. I only get to see them a couple of times a year if I'm lucky. My dad, I only get to see him because of his work schedule. I only get to see him on Christmas. My mom comes up and helps me with my daughter, but that's only a few times a year. So the way in which I see my family has greatly diminished as I have made a new life over there. So my happiness comes from seeing them. Um, I'm actually currently in Texas right now, where we're taking a little family. We're taking a break to come see family. But it's, I always feel like my family centers me, and it also brings me back to my roots and who I am. Um, because you can forget living so far away and only seeing your family, you can forget. So yeah, my happiness keyword would be getting to see my family, because it's so it's time that is so special to me whenever I'm with them.
Did you ever find a time where you realized that not being around them was an unhappy point that you had to change? Tell us about that.
No, but there wasn't one particular moment. I do remember I went to school in Austin, which is about an 8 hour drive from my hometown of El Paso. And I remember thinking every time I went back for, when school started and I wasn't near, my immediate family, I just remember crying on the plane because I missed them so much, and I got so homesick. And I remember thinking, this is one day going to get easier. When I have my own family, it's going to get easier. And now, 20 years later, I have my own family, and I can tell you it has not gotten any easier. I still miss them. If I were to answer your question, if there was a turning point, I would say when my daughter was born, because that um, I needed the help. So that enabled my mom to come up more often. And I'm so grateful that she is able to do that, because it means I get to see her, and I get to have the extra help with my daughter. So that's been a blessing for sure. But no, I've always missed them ever since I started college, and I've always been homesick. So it doesn't get any easier, but it does make me more grateful for the times that I do get to see them.
That's fun. It's like, okay, now the family's gotten bigger, but I need more family around me.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, yes, yes. Especially my mom. She's been an instrumental uh a person that just, for the help alone, with my when my daughter was a newborn, now with my upcoming newborn, I've realized that I need her help so much.
Yeah, absolutely. For someone where family is not necessarily their happiness word, how do you think you would tell someone or advise someone it's like what you could seek from happiness? I mean, again, we come from all such different backgrounds, but what advice might you give or what thoughts might you give?
So I think happiness is very subject. Is it subjective or objective? I have foggy brain right now, but I think it's very individualistic,
Mhm.
and different people find happiness in different ways. This is just one of the things that, that I have found that makes me happy, and that I'm lucky to have a family that is very supportive and loving. But I realize that a lot of people don't come from that, don't have that. Um, so, but they may find out happiness, like I said, and it's very similar to the mom thing. You know, whatever makes you feel happiness and enjoyment, and what you derive pleasure from, do that, seek that, whether it be family, whether it be, whatever. Um, do that, because happiness looks different on everybody, and it's really hard to find. Um, Especially, I think, if you don't have that immediate family, it's hard to find the different moments in a world and life that's constantly putting stress and strain and pressure on you. You have to actively seek out those moments. So I think seek them out and hold on to them, and not to go into the negative. But I think the world is full, like I said, it's full of stressors and pressures, and I think it's up to every one of us to find the little things and to find daily moments that bring you happiness.
Absolutely. It's funny. I was thinking the exact same thing as you're saying it is, there are sometimes estrangements in families, and it's figuring out where you can find your happy even in that. It's like, and yes, I like mom, but I can't spend a lot of time with her because she asks the questions and all the pressure. I'm not saying
Right.
that in my case, but for somebody, it could be any.
100%.
But looking for those little points where you can go, okay, we can enjoy this much time together, and then let's call it a day.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think that different families, like you said, have different dynamics, different structures. So it's about finding those little moments that you're happy within,
Mhm.
and creating boundaries if you need to create boundaries around them, or setting whatever you need to be able to feel that.
Mhm. So, who do you think is your biggest female role model in your family? Would it be your mother, your grandmothers? I mean, that's a big question.
My biggest female role model, oh my gosh, I'm gonna say my daughter, actually, because um she's 3, yet she has taught me so much. And I mean, at the risk of sounding cliche, it's my daughter, but she has taught me to see life in a much different way, and forced me out of habits that I had, and forced me to see things from a different perspective. So, I tell her all the time, I want to be just like you, because I just seeing her as she grows older, develop into her own person, yet still, remaining true to who she is. And I tell her that all the time. I don't want her to ever lose sight of herself and who she is as a person. Which is a reminder to me that, to never lose sight of myself. But you see children when they're little, and you see their true sense of self, and you don't want to touch that. You don't want the world to taint that, and it will, just by virtue of living in it. But she's a reminder to me every day of who I want to be when I grow up. I want to stay true to myself. I want to, maintain my own true sense of self. I want to be just like her. So I would say my daughter.
That's beautiful. That is absolutely a beautiful answer. When you think about even our own mothers, when they look at us and they're like, wow, they actually have these feelings about us like that too, and when you get to pass those and start to go through your own growth. And I mean, that's beauty. That's beauty. And what a happy story. What a
Yeah,
happy.
and I think you can learn at every age. You can learn from every age as well. So like I said, even though she's teeny tiny, she's not even 3 yet, she's already taught me so much.
I get goosebumps when you say that.
It's cute, isn't it?
It's precious. It is so precious. If you could give the gift of health, wealth, or happiness, one of them, to someone, which would it be and why?
Happiness, because I think it's so hard to find, and I think it takes some effort to find it, and it looks different for everybody. So I wish happiness on everybody. I hope that everyone can find it. It's not hard. It's not easy to find. So I would give them the gift of happiness.
Well, wonderful. So, everyone, you get the gift of happiness from Vianey.
I like that. Just handing out gifts of happiness.
Well, I have a question now that comes from our previous guest.
What is one time or event that something happened and you realized your mother was right?
Oh my gosh, so many, so many.
That's funny because this comes from my mother.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna think of something outside of motherhood, um, because I feel like that's all I've talked about, and I could go on and on about all the times that my parents and my mom have been right. This may not be applicable to everybody, but for me specifically, that the people that I know I can not only trust, but who will be there to love and support me and my decisions no matter what, are always going to be my family. So no matter what happens, I have that core support system that I can always fall back on. I think, when you're growing up and you have your friends, you think that you're going to stay friends forever, or that you're, going to maintain the same set of friendships, and you do. But that's certainly not the case for all friendships. Friendships come and go. Friendships fade through time, through years, through distance. But I think the one thing that I can continuously rely on is my family's support. So that's something that I've learned to be true over time. And there are, like I said, there are dozens of little examples about, raising girls that I can or just, daily life and upbringing that I can look back and say, yes, you were right about this. But I think the big overarching thing for me is that no matter what happens, you can always rely on your family.
I was raised the same, so from my mother, that's exactly something she would say to me. So I get it. I understand.
Yeah, and
And
how lucky we are to have them, right? To have that, because a lot of people don't, and it's so, I feel so fortunate to be able to say that.
yeah, well, I would love to delve into that in another interview with you and another time if you would love to do
Yeah.
another time. So I want to thank you for joining me today on this episode and thank our guest, Vianey, for having this interview to inspire with us today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thanks so much.